Okay, that should be me live. Looks like it. Looks like the camera's working fine. Disorganized as always. Thorolf, good morning or good afternoon. Hope you're well. I'm doing good. Doing good. I tried overnight oats for the first time this morning, which were actually way better than I thought they would be. I mean, admittedly, they were chocolate with chocolate chips in, so you can't really go wrong with that. But new breakfast. Okay. Let's hope so. Good morning, Essa. Apologies for the echo there on myself. Yeah, all the overnight oats recipes I've found are like apple pie, pumpkin pie, chocolate. Like this was double chocolate. It was chocolate chips in oats with cocoa powder and vanilla. So it was a double cheat. But something new for breakfast. Unfortunately, I'm sitting at work fighting to find motivation to be productive. Yeah. I have those days. I call them Monday to Friday right now. It doesn't help work from home because I have my personal stuff all around me, right? So when my motivation dips, it's always a little hard. Okay, let's close Discord on this machine so I don't get distracted by the beeps. It's my last month and it's not helping the issue. Yeah. Well, you have a full month of work ahead of you. Yeah. I can work from home when I'm focused. It's just when I'm struggling to have focus, it's much harder. Let's not show that. Let's not show that. Da 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 da. Looking up that. Okay. Let's bring this over here. And we'll get started. Okay, so water, drink water. A phrase inspired by CetoBot. I have put in place the basics of a repository already, but I've done no code. I've prepared nothing, and we're going to get started with this. So the goal of this application is basically, over the last couple of weeks of writing the Agile platform, I have had several questions of, is this going to be open source, etc. And I've started to realize that as I've learned some of those larger lessons, there's some lessons to be learned and some tinkering that could be done by other people to help explain or to help just in general get an idea of how to write an application. There's people who come into the chat who aren't confident in writing apps. There's people who are not sure how to write the architecture. They don't see this sort of code normally. And if I keep working on Agile platform all the time, that code isn't available to them. So all they see is the offshoots, the little open source pieces. So there's no intention of making this a full application, a full deployed product sort of application. But again, treat it with the same idea that this is an application. Build it like I would normally build an application. We treat the PRs like I would normally do, but we just do reviews on stream. So what we'll do is, as we go forward, I think the best bet is for me to get the structure in to begin with, and then we can talk about it as we go. And then once the structure's in there, then start really accepting PRs. If I'm doing putting the structure in place, and we're taking PRs at the same time, that's going to get kind of messy, but we'll have to see. But all PRs will be reviewed on stream. It's going to be interesting for me because other people, again, when you work with new people, you have differing standards. And having done this before, having gone through the whole stream open source project, I'm not building something that's really useful to a lot of people, right? I'm building something that's useful if you are looking to how do I build an application? You know, what pieces do I need? How do I put these pieces in? Oh, that sounds a really cool way to do an open source thing. Nice. So it's the difficulty here is you have an opinion about how code should be written. I have an opinion about how code should be written, right? We have to meet in the middle on standards. How do we define those standards? And those are the discussion points that we're going to hit, because I've worked with a lot of different people over the years, and you know, everyone has a different opinion. Dota came in the other week and is like, I don't like your testing style. That's fine. If we're working together on the tests, we can discuss them more, right? So this is an opportunity to do that, right? It's an opportunity to not only grow. This is where it's good to be the repo owner. You get to set the rules. Well, I don't want to necessarily set the rules. I don't want to like, you will follow my way of doing things, right? That's not the goal. Is to have the active discussion and maybe test my own thoughts, right? Maybe test, oh, why do I feel this way, right? Be open myself to, okay, I can see how that's better, right? There's naming conventions, there's styles, there's all sorts of things. We can look at tools for applying. Although underscore on members hurts me way too much for absolutely no reason. You will see that. You will see. Although actually, that's a good point. With the way that .NET's working these days, and the way that I've been writing the code recently, I've had fewer classes with actual member variables, or fields, I suppose. Private fields is what they really are. So I've actually not used a lot of the underscore fields recently, because the class style with the primary constructor stuff and trying to keep classes down to a minimum of functionality, there's been less of that. But it's still not going away, because I do not like this. This dot hurts more than any underscore. I don't like putting the type in the variable name. I don't like being doubly explicit with its naming, right? Comments. I don't like comments, right? You have to have a reason for a comment. Actually, there was a piece of code. Actually, I will show you. On the mediator outbox, there's a piece of code that was really not very easy to understand. So I added comments around this, but there was a piece of code somewhere that didn't really make it obvious. This comment, configure default options, because I didn't know how to describe this, because it's not, at first glance, it's what is that actually doing? Because I was questioning. So the problem is that what I did is I created an action, a nullable action, so you could configure this. So if you just don't pass anything into this, it needs to still configure the options itself, but it only configures those options if it calls this function, right? Because it gives it the configure, right? So in this configure method, or inside of here, it calls services.configure with an action. So I need to give it an empty action so it actually configures this object. Yeah. So I was like, making another method didn't feel right, because that's like, okay. So that was one of the times where I actually thought, I need to just be explicit about what I was doing. So I just put the comment in there, because this is a project that other people could see, because it is an open source project, right? So those sorts of things are the sorts of things I believe you discuss with the people that are working on it, right? You know, adding comments like this, these are useful when you're developing an API. Although I have learned that Rider doesn't do a very good job of showing these, so that's interesting. I'm gonna have to look into that as I go forward. If there's other options that I have to enable to make sure Rider shows comments on APIs, etc. But that's my point, right? These sorts of things are open to discussion. I always think comments should be discussed, because that way you brainstorm, okay, is there a better way of doing this that we agree upon and fits better with our standards or whatever. So yeah. So that's the mediator outbox. That's all up in my primary repo. So yeah, the focus of this project will be one of sharing, one of understanding and growth, and basically, if we actually get an app that's working and doing everything we need, great. Now, what I've learned from previous attempts at doing projects of this form is that without any sort of structure, things don't move along. So I will take the lead on things and I will run with things even if no one's got any input, because otherwise I'm sat around waiting for input, or I have to hope that people are engaged enough with the content to actually do something, right? I believe there's enough people in this group at this point that probably do have an interest in doing something, but I want to make sure that I remove that fear. So the fear will come from having to run by yourself, right? So initially what I've done, helps if I use the right project, right? Water, drink water. So what I've done is I've created a bunch of primary stories and laid out the first 4 pieces that need to be done, right? Roughly, right? I'm not focusing on this. Now, this system is one where we're not going to create an Auth0 login to begin with. We'll create a login system, register an account, we'll set a password, we'll hash it, whatever we need to do. Again, that's a piece we can discuss and how to do that properly. It's a long time since I've done any sort of password storage in .NET, so maybe I'll have to do a refresher there. And, some basic components of the application. Now, what I expect to do is spend 1 to 2 days a week working on this project, and then the remainder of the week, 3+ potentially days working on Agile platform. I was going to do some bot development, but I think the group of people that come into this stream right now understand that it's not a super interactive stream in that format, right? I don't put lots of things to entertain people in there. Or I don't put anything to entertain people in. If you're a sub, you get some badges and some emotes, but that's about it, right? I want to provide more, but I feel that the content I'm providing is probably the thing that people are coming for, right? So I'm not going to do any bot dev for right now and focus on that, right? Features and stuff. So I think it's better to split the work up between these 2 apps. So yeah, I will then, once we get underway and these first few are done, what I'll do is I'll create an issues board inside of GitHub, and we'll track all the work that needs to be done in there, and then people can pick up actual issues and run with them that way. I feel that's a constructive way of doing it, because then I can pick up an issue at the beginning of the day, or projects, maybe we'll make a project board, that's what I do, right? And create items on here, because I don't like GitHub's tracking stuff. It's kind of meh. It kind of works, but it's mainly based around there being an issue in the code. Okay. So yeah, we'll get started on this, and then we'll go from there. So what I've done is I've created a git ignore, right? It's a standard Visual Studio git ignore. I've added the MIT license again. I do not want this project to be in any way closed off or taken and used as someone's work, right? This should be everyone's work, right? Not everyone that contributes. So the goal is to create an application that first starts tracking your own water usage, right? So, and will start to remind you, right? That's kind of the plan, right? So the first act is I want to be able to log water usage, water consumption. The next piece is to be able to add friends right? And kind of create groups and then help them stay accountable. Now, I do have it in there that one of the things we don't want to do is make it about competition. Right? You don't want to force people to drink water, right? They need to drink the amount they need to drink. So you set your own target consumption for the day, and your friends only ever see your percentage of achieved, right? So they know if you're off pace because by the middle of the day you should have hit 50% of your consumption, blah 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 blah. So it will only be sharing, hey, they're at 50%, rather than they've only drank 12 ounces of water and you drank 36. You need to force them to drink 24 more ounces of water or whatever, right? You don't want to be able to do that sort of stuff, right? So the user themselves would track their own usage in fluid ounces, or potentially whatever else we want to measure in. If we are going to be European, I suppose we probably should support measurement conversions. But guess what? That's going to be a feature for someone else to work upon. So we can do all that sort of stuff. But the goal will be not to make it about competition, but friendly prompts and reminders, right? So that a group of people can help. And now this idea comes from me and my daughter are both pretty bad at drinking water. We both do karate, and during the day I have to really make sure I take on water, because if I sit here and code, hours go by and I don't consume anything. I mean, I've got a cup of coffee now, but I could then happily sit and code for the next 3 hours and lose track of all time. So this is aimed at that. Hey, have you drank any water yet? Have you drank any water yet? Right? I can see you haven't drank any, so hey, you need to drink some water. So that's the goal. So if there's any questions, the stream follows the exact same format, right? There's no difference in the stream. The reality is it's about discussion, it's about growth, it's about sharing, and this just happens to be fully open source rather than agile platform. And here comes this particular question: which architecture will we use in water drink water? Well, that's a good discussion point. Do we start with the same format we've used in the agile platform? Do we just start with assuming we're going to do clean architecture and see if it builds out okay? Do we use the same tools? Is there different tools that we would like to use, right? Again, I'm going to have to make some decisions because not everybody wants to be engaged in every single piece of discussion. And if I wait upon, hey, what do you think? I've done this before, right? I've done this in past projects, and I've learned my lesson there in that people do want to engage, but they don't necessarily want to make decisions for you, or they don't want to jump in and say, oh, I think we should do this, because it's too involving. So, I will make some decisions, whether they're right or wrong. I might do them just to make that happen, that discussion, if I feel that people do care. Connie, good day. How are you doing? How's the microphone today, by the way? I mean, it looks like it's balanced enough. I believe we're still using just the Go XLR. So I forgot to check that. It's still a bit quiet. There you go, one notch up on the Go XLR as well. So what do we think's best, right? Do we want to lay it out like we did, like we have done in Agile Project, or do we just start and build something and then refactor it? Because I can put, API backend data, right? I can do that and structure it that way to start with, and we can refactor it later. But yeah. Okay. So I think as a participant, I want to be able to register. This is our starting story. This is what needs to do everything, right? So again, we're going to store the password. We'll one-way hash it so that we can't decrypt it. So at least it's somewhat secure. And yeah, no work till Wednesday. I'm sick. You make good progress. You're sick. I'm sorry to hear that. That's not good. Don't you die now, monitor. My monitor's flickering. I have ordered a new monitor, which is going to be an interesting setup because it's a ultra widescreen 3440 by 1440 monitor. Which I'm actually looking at my space. I'm not entirely sure was a smart idea, but we'll see. But I want a bigger working area to code off of. Anyway, tick tick boom. Welcome. How are you doing? Thank you for the follow. Your voice. Huh? So, by the way, this is what an Oldham based accent sounds like after 16 years living in the US. I know you're from the Manchester area, right? Yeah, I'm from out that way. Saddleworth more specifically. But yeah. So this is a Northern English accent after 16 years in New Jersey. Okay. Okay, so let's get started on this. So we need to clone the repo first. Repository, GitHub. This is going to be interesting. I don't have. Okay, so we need copy that URL. That goes. I'm just doing the checkout on the other screen. Projects. Clone. Okay, ads are going to run. I do have the ads on 1.5 minutes every 30 minutes so that the Twitch is satisfied. So I hope that you are okay. If I'm ever doing something and you want me to stop while you're in ads, just let me know. I will happily pause. Okay, so water, drink water. Oh wow, that opened the file system, not the project. Because there's no project, there's no solution. All right. Let's close that. Okay, it cloned to the right path, right? That was what I was worried about. I was worried about the actual layout of that. Okay, so architecturally, here's what I'm thinking. Lay it out in a little bit more of a haphazard, not haphazard, but lay it out in just Sarav, good morning. Design using diagrams first? You want me to draw pictures? You're not wrong. but I just don't know how to draw the diagrams that I need right this second, because I don't. So stories, I am. Tick tick boom, tick tick. the My main application on the stream is about agile project management, right? I'm building an application because I believe that there are areas of agile project management that are poor, right? Mainly communication. So stories are something that I care about, right? I'm not very good at writing them. I'm not very good at structuring them, but over the time, I want to be better at that and force myself to be better by writing an application that is all about that. But I do realize the importance of having some structure, some stories. So I'm using space here. It works pretty well for what I'm doing. I'd like to go deeper into these stories, but I don't know if that's necessary for streaming, right? So there's a challenge of a balance of keeping people entertained and also then boring the pants off them, right? You don't want to go too deep. So I'm going to keep with these. Yeah, these stories were particularly thrown together because of Amal, good morning. How are you doing? New application, yes. I'll review that in a second. Just to understand relationship between services and database. Okay, I get the point there. So this application, having worked on the Agile project management, I've realized that there are several people that come into the stream on a daily basis that would benefit from having a more accessible code base. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to spend 2 days a week working on this other application, Water Drink Water. I've picked the topic rather than open it up for debate. I've picked I've put it up there. I've structured it already, and I've created a bunch of stories purely to get it started. Right. The goal of this is not to actually be the be all and end all of all the work to do. Right. The goal is once this gets underway, to move all the stuff into GitHub projects or whatever we will use there, right? So that you can track this yourselves, you can add work to it, you can do whatever you want with it, right? You can branch this off. Because I don't want to dictate everything, but I have learned from past streaming efforts that if I don't do something and make some decisions, it doesn't go well. It goes slowly, and then I'm waiting on things, or I'm expecting people to do things. Helpful for my kid, I have to ask him to drink water. Yeah. So the reason is because of my daughter, right? Me and my daughter both do karate. We both don't consume enough water. I'm asking her to drink more water. Um, uh, so yeah, that's where this comes from. This is where my idea came from here. It's an app we can build. It will be relatively simplistic in comparison to Agile platform, but it will give everybody the opportunity to tinker with the code, to see the architecture evolve. As a participant, I want to be able to register an account to access the platform, for example. Yeah, we can get into definite story definitions. Again, I threw these together purely in 20 minutes just to try and figure out rough first steps, right? Yeah, okay. If you don't dictate, I'll start suggesting C++. If I ever go to C++ as the first thing, we need to start questioning, have I lost my mind? I beat the lab today in Path of Exile. Too excited about it. Nice, daughter. Why write it in C++ when you can do C instead? Yeah. So I think we get the point, right? If I don't make some decisions, then it could just turn into, and that's what will actually happen in teams, right? You'll sit down and you'll start talking about something, and the options will start flowing. Oh, we could do this. Oh, we could use this. Oh, we could use this, right? At some point, you have to make a decision, right? And as a leader, as a leader of a group, you have to be willing to say, nope, we're using this, and commit. Right. The hardest thing to do, especially in business, is to say we're going to use this library. right? Um, I'll share a story for that, right? So I was brought into a company in 2014. My sole focus was on getting their application stack back on track, right? I was hired because I had strong opinions about how to do that. I had a yeah, language in the stream. Sorry. um, yeah, I keep the language PG. Um, so I was brought in to try and get the application back on track, and other people will have heard this story before. When it came time to actually build a new application, right? We had this awful point. AngularJS was still the Angular there. We'd tinkered with it and enjoyed it. We didn't like working with React at that point, and Angular 2 was just around the corner. So we made the argument for using AngularJS because if you remember that period, Angular made all these claims about you'll just be able to upgrade. So if you remember that period, you'll be able to just upgrade. So we built an entire application around AngularJS. Right towards the end, September of 2015, I believe it was, we released, September 2016, we finally got the application actually out and running. Angular 2 released. And they went, yeah, we can't make it upgrade. The point of the story was, at some point, you have to make a decision, good or bad. You make a decision for the benefit of moving forward, right? And you accept, here's what's going to happen if this is wrong, right? So what you do is you build your application in the best way you can. You keeping it. You make sure it's clean. You try so that application, the back end and the front end are still disconnected enough that you could replace the front end, right? You could build a new front end on top of it and just sit it on top of this application stack. It still would function. The back end has been upgraded to .NET 7 or 8, or whatever it is at this point. I'm still in touch with the developers, right? So the back end can be upgraded. Nowadays, AngularJS can coexist with Angular in the same repository, and it's still, yeah, you can. I've seen React and Angular apps merged in the same thing. I've seen Angular and AngularJS, right? I've seen it happen. So it's not impossible. It's just, again, every time you do that sort of stuff, it makes it more of a management nightmare. That's why it's so powerful having a good programming manager or architect, having someone to make those decisions. Yeah. Yes. Okay. Got you, Dota. I worked at a company in 2019 which was still using an AngularJS front end. It was odd, to be honest. Yeah, it's not easy. But my overall point is I will make some decisions for the benefit of moving this project forward. If you don't agree with them, that's where we discuss. If you want to jump in Discord, you want to carry on, I'll create a channel in Discord specifically for this project, right? So all conversation around drink water can happen in one thread if you want to. Links, updates, PRs, etc. But that's your choice, right? So I will make some decisions. Everything's open for discussion. I'm happy to change the way I do something to accommodate other people, but we have to have good open discussion about it. We have to make sure we agree. And at some point, if it's not moving things forward, I'll make that decision, right? I'll take that role of, okay, I'm project lead, I go, right? It's actually slightly embarrassing we're still on AngularJS. It's not easy for a company to commit to that level. No, language is not open for discussion. There's too many .NET devs in this chat. I know that for a fact. But it's not easy for any company, once they commit to a technology, to accept that, because when it comes to, hey, I can refactor this piece of code, right? If it's refactoring a function, or it's refactoring an entire class, or it's adding some unit tests, that's relatively easy. If it's, hey, we want to redesign the entire front end, A company's like, that's a big commitment because developers are going to like, hey, yeah, we can do that in 2 months easy. And it won't be 2 months. It'll be 4 months or it'll be 6 months, right? Because developers are not that good at estimating that far out, right? Or that quantity of work in one go. I guess the reason it was odd was because the company was very toxic and they all gate kept everything. So when people did get exposure to other pieces of code, one day decided on more than just coding standards. They would make you write it like they did, despite them not knowing how to write clean code. Ugh. Yeah, my company, we still have to use Angular with a comment that it's easy to find Angular devs than Svelte or something. 3 years, you got it. 6 months and a few layers later, I left that place. Yeah, good. Don't stay in toxic work environments. It will crush your willingness to write better code. It will crush your sense of self-worth. It will undervalue. It will make you undervalue yourself going into the marketplace as well because your skill set is not expanding. At the end of that, write it like they did. We have the general practice to write the code similar to the code. Standards are not bad, right? Standards as a developer are helpful, and I'm sure we'll learn that, right? I will preface this as we do PRs, as people want to commit code to this project. I will criticize. Because it's based upon my expectations. But it doesn't mean I'm being mean. It doesn't mean I'm being nasty. It means I'm just being critical of that thing. It's not something you should take personally or take as, oh, I have to now change my way. If you feel you have a better way or you feel your way has merit, test yourself. Do you believe that? If you do, push back, right? That's the reality. Like Dota and I got into this conversation over unit testing the other week, right? If we start writing tests and Dota wants to contribute to this project, right? And we start writing tests and Dota doesn't like the testing style, then we can have a discussion. And I know that's coming. I'm pretty sure that will be coming, right? So, yeah. Oh my goodness. I am not used to chat being this fast. If I find if you stick to the top 3 Angular, React, Vue, finding devs is not an issue. Yeah, you've got to make your technology. That is a good valid point from both of you. The technology does kind of go into hiring, so you have to kind of stick within what is very popular. There is value in that, but there is also value in experimentation. It's a question of when do A or B. Yeah, pretty new job will be better. Thorolf, I can say that sometimes the leap is all you need, right? I will be honest, I'm not in a good place with mine. It is not what I expected it to be. The grass isn't always greener. Do I regret it? No, because I had to push myself to move on and learn different things about myself. So I'm taking the positives from that. So even if your new role has its downsides, don't look at the negatives. Find the positives in that, right? There'll be positives. There'll be things you've learned along that way that help you grow. 100% FOPR standards and code review. Yep. 100% for standards and code review. Yep. Ever so quietly, this becomes Svelte, React, Vue. Yeah, maybe. Did it 7 years in my previous company, tried to improve them, was blocked by the devs, was blocked by the IT, and finally also by the consultants. Gave up on switch companies, and I undervalue myself a lot because I thought I'm bad and the other was just worse. Yeah. Staying in a toxic environment is really harmful for you in more ways than one. Not just your mental, right? It actually creates a problem for you. You've got to push yourself. The thing that I've learned from many years of doing this is I've got to keep trying to improve, right? If I don't improve, right, I can just find a job right now, right? At 25 years of development, right? I could go find a job and sit in that job for the rest of my career, potentially, if I find the right company. And just sit there, and because I'm the old guy, because I'm the guy that's had the experience, I can be like, nope, do it that way. Nope, do it that way. I don't want to do that. I want to keep growing. I want to keep learning. If I were to learn something new, my choice would be React. What are yours? Good question, Essa. If I could choose, I'd want Vue. React and Svelte are both going the route of put JavaScript everywhere, which I don't agree with. I don't have a single preference. I understand that they are better for different projects and applications. Yeah, that's realistic. But your skill set is stretched out a little bit thinner, right? Keep working on different platforms. There are so many bad companies in dev. There's so many bad companies, right? Not everyone knows how to treat employees. True. Devs never done learning. Yeah, we all do that. I couldn't think about switching companies, but my target company will probably pay less. Yeah, that's a risk as well. For me, I guess it's good environment and learning is what I want out of work. That's what we could all learn. Right? We could all aim for, right? Good environment and learning. Get a job in the public sector is the way to retire on the job. I don't want to do that. I don't want to sit on my rest on my laurels as such. Yeah, of course. Everyone is almost unfireable here because it's money. Lol, not true. Yeah, I mean, when you have a family and a house and all those sorts of fun things, bills to pay, it doesn't get easier as you get older. That's for certain. Yeah, but earning enough to live and earning enough to and enjoying yourself. Like right now, I would happily take a 10% drop in salary for 4-day work week. Right, I would happily do that. I could afford to do that, and I would feel better for it, right? Because I could do more of my personal stuff, right? So I actually do want to start looking for something like that, and I've actually considered consultancy at this point. So I can be a bit more selective over what I work on. But that's a big risk. So then, which S is all like, let's get this job done. Enough talk, let's work. This so another point, and this is kind of an odd point to make, but this is actually an important step, right? This is team building, right? This is finding out your colleagues' opinions. This is finding out where they lie on technologies. This is discussion amongst colleagues, even if it's light banter and thoughts on stuff. It will expose a lot about how they think and how they work, and it is useful when it comes to working with them, right? So I know that it's only a Twitch chat right now, but if you think about it, if you guys want to contribute to this project, your colleagues, right? If you treat it like that and you get to know each other a little better, you'll know what someone likes or doesn't like, etc. So it's an important team building step to make sure you actually are on the same page on things. Lost more than 10%, but that 4-day work week, yeah, yeah. But again, Thorolf, your growth will continue, your expertise will grow, your happiness will allow you to learn more, and you will become more valuable in the workplace going forward, right? Because you've made that decision to leap. So there are many benefits that you've got to work towards, but they are there if you go chasing them. Consulting, like building stuff or giving advice? A little bit of both, I'm thinking at this point. It might be fun to kind of go in and kind of give some thoughts and opinions on how to build software without actually building it. That role that I hate so much is the one that I want to be doing because it's way easier. Okay, so React, Angular, or Vue.js. My choice is Blazor. I vote Angular. I won't be using the other two anytime soon. Well, I'll tell you what. Let's get it started. Let's get some APIs in place. We can put something in front of it using whatever technology right now. Probably Angular for right this second, but nothing is set in stone, right? I'm also relatively new out in the real world. I finished my education 1.5 years ago, so I'm honestly not too worried about it. You're fine. You're early in your career. You've got plenty of growth. No React, their server stuff is a no go. React scares me more than anything else. Like Vue and Svelte, they're pretty simplistic, and they're all based off of those two calls anyway. And then everything else is just kind of, yeah. I'm uneducated, 5 years into my career. So it is worth noting, right? I have been doing this for a while, right? This is year 25 as a professional dev. But at no point do I know more than any one of you. 1.5 years, 5 years, 2 years, 4 years, right? There are things you know, there are things you understand way better that I don't, right? No, I do not have a formal education. I went to college in the 90s to do engineering. I did not enjoy the engineering, but I did enjoy controlling robots with assembler. So I went, I want to become a programmer. They put me on a course for general IT where the day one was, here's Microsoft Word. And then when we did get to programming in year 2, it was, here's Pascal, let's write a poker game out of a book. And here's Ball and Delphi, let's write an app out of a book, when I'd spent all summer teaching myself. So I quit that course 2 weeks before the end of it and had to go find a job. And I've been doing it ever since. I'm 21, lol. I left high school and got a job in Altrincham. I'm a Bury lad. Travel sucked. Yeah, even people coming out. I worked in Leeds and lived in Saddleworth, so I had a 2.5 hour train ride every day. At 5 a.m. I get up, go to work. I eventually moved to Leeds when I was 19, and spent 4 years up there, and then moved to Maidenhead, and then moved to the US. Even people coming out of the same education have wildly different skills. Oh god, yes, the other 3 in my senior group or whatever couldn't code. That's a wild commute. Yeah, yeah, it was. I didn't drive, so yeah. There were groups with 3 codes in it. It had me and 3 people that did negative work. I taught one of the classes when I was in college, basically, because the teacher was reading out the book and struggling. And we all learn Angular, guys. So, you will always find people in your jobs, in your careers, that need carrying, right? Not everybody is made for this. So I kind of see it as there's 2 kinds of programmers. There's the programmers that love what they do, or developers, engineers, whatever you want to be termed as, right? There's the people who love what they do and they have a passion for it, and there's the people who are there to get a paycheck, right? Those paycheck people, not necessarily stupid or in any way less talented, but they often show it in their attitude. And as people who are passionate about what you do, those programmers will irritate you more, and those are the programmers that will churn code out or copy and paste and cause problems. And those are the ones, sadly, you have to develop your code to be for, right? Angular is awesome for really big teams that have to touch the same code. They did learn, but learning to code during year 4 is rough. Working in tech at 16 is hard, to be honest. I could easily glorify to sound like a boffin kid, but tech-wise, super easy. Soft skills are what made it so difficult. Yeah. Dealing with people is, young 20s lack social skills. 16 would be a nightmare. 16 in the UK versus 16 in the US or North America is a very different thing, though. 16 in the UK, you've left school, right? 16 in America, you're still a child and very much treated like it. So there's a different maturity to British education and European education, I would imagine, being that the Europeans I've met are similarly mature. Yeah. But still, 16 is still wet behind the ears, right? To use the term. Google. Trust Google technologies, they won't let you down. Angular, Golang, Docker, Kubernetes, Node.js. Yeah, so the point I was going to make, so Angular, I will go with Angular to begin with. Oh no. I will go with Angular to begin with purely because it will get us moving on something. There is nothing to say we can't swap it out. right? There's nothing to say anyone can't take it and say, hey, there's another option here, and present that as a branch or a PR even, right? So don't worry about committing to anything. We will make progress. My old roommate has the same education as me, but doesn't have the same passion as me. His attitude towards my passion and career choice soured me a bit. Yeah, I'm 21 now. It's been a while, but I can conduct myself professionally and keep my values strong, which is all I can hope for, to be honest. Yeah, it's you've had a growth that some people don't go through, right? You've had to kind of learn a lot, and you've got a confidence now that you didn't have 5 years ago. If anyone has heard of the Everything Library, I don't know what that means. Okay, so let me start something, right? Actually, I don't want to do new solution. Let's see if this works. Stream project water drink water. So that folder. Will it let me do this? No, I want solution. Oh. For reference, it won't let you put commas in a solution name. Okay. I think we're going to put. I want the idea folder in ignore, I think. These communities in my tech startup. Currently, I love it, hate it, and may possibly have a mortal fear of odd. Kubernetes is something that I will be looking at in the main project. Okay, so for a few minutes, I'm gonna. You guys, I am blown away today because the chat has been active in a way that it hasn't been in a long time. I'm not gonna keep reading everything. Keep talking, right? I'm gonna just get a basic project structure started, and then we can proceed. So keep talking. Okay, so we're going to add the get ignore. We're going to add to this. We're going to do dot idea. That should fix that down to that. Yes, that does. Add solution. Okay, Dota, thank you very much for hanging out. Good to have you. As always. I have set my own cluster out for us by blah blah blah. Yeah, I'm not going to read everything out. The confidence to reject a PR from your senior dev. It took me a few months before I got that. For context, my colleague has been here for 20 years. Again, Thorolf, it doesn't mean you're perfect, right? It doesn't mean you can't miss something. I don't know if you were here the other day. I'm staring at code and wondering why it's not working properly. And I'd switched name and email. I think it was yesterday. Was that yesterday or Saturday? One of the days. But I missed it. I completely missed it. And I was staring right at it. And I'd gone through that code dozens and dozens of times. So no one's perfect. It's for startups program where we plenty of Azure credits. Nice. So you actually run a startup yourself, Tick Tick? Asking for it. Oh, you was asking for it always. I don't need to be productive was your words. Yeah, word time. Yeah, I do. Nice. That's a leap I've been very afraid to make. Do my own thing. I suppose kind of that is kind of my point of the stream, right? It is an area for discussion and software development chat as well as getting stuff done. But I'd rather talk about the software as well as do it. Okay. So here's where I believe we should head with this project. very hard. I've been broke for the past year or two, but hopefully not too much longer. Nice. Nice. Well, here's hoping, right? Yeah, I'm past that now, but the code was complicated and I didn't understand the theory. That's a perfect opportunity to pair with somebody and make them explain it to you. Because sometimes being challenged on something is uh being challenged on something is more beneficial than it being assumed you're perfect, right? Um, Even if you're right, being challenged on it forces you to describe it, and that will oftentimes reveal bugs that might not have been found otherwise. So it is always worth pair programming. I've tried to do smooth switch from 8.5 to my own company, but it's almost impossible doing stuff after the 8 hours. I love software development, and honestly, this stream and working on the agile platform stuff has massively helped my mental health over the last 3 months. I was struggling. Um, Working in PHP was not my goal, and it's not necessarily somewhere I want to be long term. But yeah, so I do love working on this out of hours, right? I do love spending my time growing and doing this. So it's very easy for me to because it's always been my hobby, right? Since I was 17, I've loved doing this stuff. Any good dev, any level should accept they make mistakes. Being diplomatically called out should provoke thought, not defense. To be honest, I'm not employed. I do some contract work now and again to make some cash, but not being employed much over the past 2 years. Yeah, but you're working on your passion, right? You're working on something that will in the sounds like in the near to short term pay off, right? Mental health and PHP in one sentence. You are strange. I got jump scared by that. Whoops. Yeah. So we'll give Thor 45 seconds. So Essa, I do apologize. I am focused on trying to get something done. We will get a project underway today. I promise there will be code. But this is also beneficial because you know now who the sorts of people that are in the chat and what they do and what they like. Because if we're doing this, there will come opinions even if people do not contribute, right? I did work at eBay for 5 weeks law in 2022. I got assaulted on the Metrolink home by some drunk dude at 5 p.m. on a Monday. Wow. Yeah, work from home's much safer. Welcome to Manchester, am I right? Oh, absolutely. Yeah, Manchester's great. Actually, the only place I've ever had an issue is actually Manchester city centre. When we were kids, we were walking through it and got pepper sprayed. A guy just walked across, and went right across us. Yeah, yeah. Okay, so Sarav did raise something earlier on, and I hope Sarav is still around. I do apologise. Thorol, thank you very much for the sub. I appreciate that. I do not run the ads to force people to sub. I run the ads to try and get people into the stream sooner. But thank you very much. I appreciate that. Okay, so Sarav did make a good point earlier on, right? In that some diagrams might help, right? I will warn you, I am terrible at diagrams, right? It is not the way I think about. It's not the way I think about software. I'm explorative. I'm maybe it's my learning style, right? So diagramming is not something that comes naturally to me. Um, I would assume that by now, if you spent enough time in this stream, you realize how kind of chaotic I can be at times. I don't know whether I have an issue, but my learning style is very different. I have Tourette's syndrome, and Manchester these days is full of assault rifle armed police. Oh no, not a great combo when my brain ways to cuss them out for no reason. Ooh. Same. School scared me with diagrams. Yeah, I'm the same. My mum works in diagrams and pictures all. Yeah. So I don't necessarily know how to diagram out what I would do here. So let's make a discussion point. So obviously we've spent some time over the last couple of streams working on clean architecture, right? We've been refactoring, and by the way, the ticket stuff does work in theory. I did get it all refactored and building and doing all that sort of fun stuff after yesterday's stream. What do we feel that is a good place to go with this application? Do we feel like this might just benefit from a simple API with a data backend, and we just have an application layer that just uses the database and does it that way, and we start that path and then slap a front end on it? Do we build a project that is, so with .NET you can build an Angular project that is just the API and everything all in one and just dump it in there? Is this pre-recorded? No. Antonius, this is live. I hope you're well. Welcome. I stream from 7 to 9 every day on Twitch and YouTube. Every day, Monday to Friday. And YouTube does not make it very obvious, it looks like. So yeah, do we go the route of just put it together, which I'm actually inclined to do. So for the benefit of the chart, right? So also, if you're on an agile environment for an open source project, you can use Azure DevOps free for OSS projects. This means you get agile stuff open for others to see and use. Yeah, for tickets and such. Yeah. What we'll do is we'll stick inside of GitHub's inferior version, right? The second, to see how this works. Again, I've done this on stream before, like 3 or 4 years ago. And what will happen potentially is some people will contribute a lot. Some people will contribute a PR, not like the outcome, and never contribute again. There's some pitfalls for doing this sort of stuff on stream, because this isn't something that will benefit a lot of people, right? This is purely the architecture kind of piece, sharing an application from beginning, so people can actually get involved. So that's why I'm saying, do we want to go with the rough, quick way to get something there, and then we can evolve that and help share that? So that would be useful from the perspective of, hey, I have an application, it's not in the best place, how do I refactor it? The purpose of this app is to build an app on stream that people can fully access the code for. Simplistically, it's a water tracking app to remind me to track and remind of water consumption throughout the day. Just an arbitrary idea just to make sure that there was something to put an app behind that has some sort of structure to it. But the goal will be to fully open source it and make it available to everyone in the stream. I will be doing this 2 days a week. That's completely up to anybody who wants to work on the application. If this runs, then yeah, it could be anything, and that's kind of where I'm going, right? I want to say I'm kind of more inclined to say, and let's do some draw.io. Start now. Create new diagram, blank diagram, right? I'm very bad at diagrams, right? Water, drink, water. I am terrible at diagrams because it doesn't work for me as a thought. Right? I try and make notes, I try and draw things out, and it never comes together properly. So yeah, so forgive me, I'm not going to use the right boxes for the right things. We're not going to use decisions or things like that. I know they exist. I just don't want to focus on that, right? So if we go the traditional style, right, we make an API. Why isn't that? There we go. We create an application piece, right? So similar to how the other stuff looked just a couple of days ago, and we have database. And then we stick the database behind there. We just stick it behind an MS SQL database. Right? And again, everything here is open for discussion. Do not feel that just because I'm drawing it out means it's how it's going to be. If you want to discuss it and debate the merits, feel free, right? That leaves us open for the UI, right? So everything can be just an interaction with the UI or with the API. We don't worry too much about whether we fit inside a clean architecture or whatever. We just whack tiered architecture straight up there. These two are almost inseparable, right? We don't have to use repositories. We can just use DB context straight inside of the application for now. Use a DB context factory and do all that stuff in there. The API just then is endpoints or even controllers if we want to do it, right? But if you want me to proceed with this in any specific way, or you have an opinion, I need those opinions, right? I need to get that interaction, and that's where we're gonna hit a challenge. So if you want to work on this and you want to tinker with this, then you have a say. Is kind of where I'm going. So feel free. Now chat goes quiet. But Antonius, yeah, for the this part here doesn't really matter, right? So Android, we can build an Android app, we can build Blazor, we can build all sorts of front ends on top of this if we just build this in a good way, right? Can't expect us to use more than one brain cell at a time. That flurry of chat was extremely motivating. Yeah, besides my motto is I'm just a stupid programmer. No. So a couple of years ago, I did hold an opinion, right, and I've slightly backed it off since, and I think I've shared this before, that when it comes to software development, the team should be engaged. The team should be involved with the architecture, right? And they should have a say. The reason being that if you have a say, you are more engaged. However, what I've learned is that some people want to do that and some people just want to write code. So what you need to do is build your architecture in such a way that it supports people writing code without difficulty and getting out their way, but you still need to know that when they're struggling. So there's a balance of that. So not everyone has to be engaged with how the application lays out. But yeah, seems like we will only have one service. Well, we don't know enough, right? What do we know? Can we create multiple services that we can have communication between services using messaging service? Do we need that right this second? What do we know we need? Right? Just based upon my rough stories, yes, but we don't have any need for these pieces yet, right? So we can approach this in one of two ways. We can over-engineer from the beginning and try and build it in such a way that it will support all these different cases, and we use all these crazy technologies, which will force us to use those technologies. Or do we build it in a more modular fashion, right? It's cool to use the technologies without a doubt, but we don't know we need services yet. We don't know we need messaging yet, right? And oftentimes, ideal world, your product management goes out and builds this massive backlog of work, They've interacted with developers, they've interacted with customers, they've come up with what they want to see. They've got mock-ups and everything. And you as developers are like, oh, we're going to do this, 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 and this. We're going to build these services and these services and these services. And what happens is you then kind of commit to using those services. If you write enough code to move forward, being willing to throw code out, you will be able to build an architecture that evolves more appropriately and is easier to use than if you go out and write with the end goal in mind. Working with research people has made me make that motto. So many fancy terms, so many weird math things I just don't have the time to learn. Hey, hey, Chris Jones, how are you doing? I always want to read the CMJ piece, but I do want to get better at architecture. But all the programming I've done for work is research tools with very minimal architecture. Yeah, this is where I am weak. I believe I am weak. But it is somewhere that I am passionate about getting better at, because I think that good software is definitely the best software is the software you can change without fear, right? That's the key for me is am I scared of making a change? And sometimes you got to test yourself on that one. But yeah, so Sarav, there may be services we may be expanding, but I think from the purpose of let's start with story number one, right? Story number one is I want to be able to register an account. So what do we know we need from this, right? We need to be able to capture a name, an email, and a password, and a confirmed password. Email is unique and should reject an account if registering the same email. So we have some basic rules. But this is our first story. This is the first piece. So we need something in place. So what I'm proposing, and again, if you have an opinion on this and you want to contribute, feel free. Essa, hopefully I haven't sent you packing because the conversation took so long. But my belief is what we do is we create an API, we create an application, we create a data structure, and we create a database. For right now, maybe we don't mess around with migrations. There we go. He was writing. 3 tier is enough for starting architecture, can be changed as needed. There may be not be a need to start with a large structure to begin with. It may not be right to, so let's say, start a project with a microservice architecture. Tens of thousands of people will not be pushing the doors as soon as the store opens. It may vary depending on architectural needs. Yes, I think we're on the same path. All right. Not to say that this wouldn't quickly change, right? But again, that's the point, right? If we write the code, and you'll see the style looks the same from my perspective, right? If we write the code in such a way, it'll be easy to rip apart and change. Like making those clean architecture changes was no walk in the park. But yeah. So let's go. Let's create something, right? I'm going to start with an ASP.NET Core, not Blazor. So again, for anyone watching and engaging, right? The UI side we'll just leave open for a day or two. I'll still work on UI. I'll probably put an Angular front end in front of this pretty quickly, but it doesn't mean that it can't be anything else. It doesn't mean you can't contribute a different client, right? As long as it functions with the same API. So if you want to do a Blazor front end or you want to do a React front end or whatever, you're more than welcome to make a contribution that demonstrates that. And that's kind of the point, right? So let's call this. Yeah, I did nest that a bit weird, didn't I? I'm going to go with very literal naming for right now. I'm going to drop it under a source directory. This is kind of the way I just do things. My project naming, we don't need to do tbd friends .api or whatever, because it's just wordy for the sake of wordiness. For right now, you'll see that this reads very easily and very quickly. This is just a name. This does not need to be named this permanently. The namespace underneath can be something else. Oftentimes I don't change that right now, but I should do. Right. So if we go in here now and go Alt Enter, right, you'll see the assembly. Water, drink, water. Application assembly name. Here you go. So as an assembly name, it works fine, right? Because that's just api.dll in there. Namespace tbdfriends.api, right? That's what matters. Now, if we refactor this, just namespaces, right? Now we have tbdfriends API. So that's realistically what I should do most of the time anyway. But yeah, that's. But from the visuals, you see API, right? What you can do is use the solution folders. So what I would do is I'd create a solution folder for clients and then put Angular, React, Blazor as clients under that, and have the API just be an API. Okay, so let's create the rough structure, right? Good morning, Apex. How are you doing? I'm doing good. I'm doing good. We are starting a new project. Hey, in YouTube, you're gonna have to give me a help with how to say a name that I can pronounce. The Cyrillic, I believe that's the Cyrillic alphabet. Chat doesn't appear on the screen anymore. Did I choose the wrong? Did I choose the wrong one? No, it's with chat, so there we go. That should be better. Thank you very much for the update. That's not my name. Uzbek. Welcome. Hope you're well. It was disabled. I must have turned that off when I turned off. Or I've pressed another button. You know, buttons are me. Gotta press them. Okay, so let's create application as a class library. Let's rename this. And again, if you disagree with what I'm doing, you know, you're more than welcome to say. Assembly, company name, TBD Friends. So this repo will be available in TBD Friends. It is an organization linked off my main TBD develop account, but it's purely for stream, right? Maybe namespace or project namespace names, company not product, TBD Friends, water drink. Right. A good point. Good point. Yes, you are right. TBD Friends. So the point there is TBD Friends dot water drink water dot applications, right? And again, I'm not naming these because this gets messy if you just keep doing that style. If you've got 40 or 50 projects and they all say TBD Friends dot water drink water dot, it gets really difficult to see. So I disagree with that style, right? Water. I don't know about this. Okay. Don't need that class anyway, but you are right about that one. Water, drink, water.api. Again, because tooling is where it is, right? This is not difficult. This is not difficult stuff, right? So anyone new coming into the stream, this is a project that is to share with the stream. The goal is to build an application that everyone has access to the architecture, to the decisions we made, and can tinker with. I'm just kind of laying down the groundwork because someone has to do something to start with. Otherwise, people get stuck in indecision or debate. Now, this is the data, right? Data, tbd friends dot water drink water dot data namespace tbd friends water drink water. Okay. Let's add new solution folder docs. Let's add existing item. Let's add the readme there. Right. I like doing this because it does give you access to that, and it does help you organize that, so you can keep it close. If you leave the readme out, then it kind of gets forgotten about as well. So we can actually keep that close there. Add in any information we want to add there that we think needs to be done. Oftentimes with these sorts of projects, what's going to happen is I'm going to build it, right? And then someone's going to check it out. And it's going to fail. It's not going to build. It's going to have issues. So what will happen is that README will start to evolve into a, here's how to check it out, deploy it, prepare it, etc. Because obviously once we get to a database, that poses its own challenge. I run Docker and have my SQL DB close, right? Maybe we want to consider MySQL, or maybe we want to consider SQLite to make sure it's more accessible. These are all challenges of building an application to start with, right? How do you develop it is a key piece that seems easy when you work on your own projects, but when you work with other people, these things get harder. So we're comfortable with where we're heading so far? Make sense? Works on my PC, yeah. That's all that matters, right? Works on my machine. Can't decide whether I want my sleeves down or up. It's irritating. So we have an API, we have an application, we have data, right? Next decision. Are we using controllers? Are we using minimal API? Right? Because right now, out of the box, this is using minimal API. Trying to convince my boss to run production from my home PC where I built it. I've seen some crazy stuff. The best one was I saw a production system run off a PC shop, like not together PC from the mid 2000s, and it was one hard drive, one 7200 RPM drive, mechanical drive, running a critical business system on some crazy like Core 2 Duo. And when we went to look at the machine after we decommed it finally, this was like 2019, 2020, took the CPU out and it still had the plastic under the CPU cooler. There was actually no thermal paste. The cooler had just been put straight on the PC. How about adding .NET Spy to this application? What's your opinion on this? That is something that I haven't learned yet. I haven't looked at .NET Aspire. So I'm open to it. But does that come into play now, or does that come into play at a later point? Because that's a deployment thing, right? More than anything. .NET Aspire components are new packages designed to simplify connections to popular services. So one of the things that we're going to have a challenge with is, right, hosting this thing is going to be something that I'm not paying for anything right this second, right? But someone came in the stream a couple of weeks ago actually and raised the point of architecture, actual deployment being a major concern of architecture and developing the architecture to suit the deployment. I personally feel that if you keep the architecture relatively simple to begin with and evolve it based upon what you know you're going to deploy it to, that's not necessarily a challenge. But is .NET Aspire something that we have to consider to begin with? Opinionated cloud-ready stack for building observable, production-ready distributed applications, right? So again, that comes like Sarav's point, right? Do we know we need services yet? Not really. Is this hard to add after the fact? And this then does tie it to Azure. Right, so it's an actual application out of the box. Aspire API service. Okay, it's not drastically different, right? It's just a is Aspire host. Oh, okay. There's specific. It is very opinionated. Okay. So I'm not opposed to it. However, I don't feel this project is necessarily one to start with this, purely from the fact that I haven't done it. I'm streaming it. Hey, Deflux, good morning. I'm streaming it, and I don't want to hamper progress on this project as I learn that, right? Because this project is your project, right? It's the streams project is the goal, right? It's kind of working on one thing, and it doesn't look like it's difficult to add aspiring after the fact. So even if I go off and learn some of this stuff myself and then apply it to a project, maybe this is something we can do. So yeah, I'm not opposed to the idea. I just don't throw more technologies my way. Yeah, let's definitely think about how we do that. Right, I'd definitely be interested in that conversation. Gotta love dev work Monday morning. Out of a team of 10 developers, only 2 have the ability to clock in on time on Monday. Oh, nice. Everyone else has some reason or excuse as to why. Fair enough. So let's get this basic structure in place. You know, again, I'm more than happy to like discuss how we do other things. Yes, that's the next question I said, right? That's the piece that I'm kind of focused on right this second. Time is a social construct used to oppress you, Deflux. A kid, but that's unfortunate here. If people are meant to be, I mean, do you literally mean clocking in? Right? Do you need them there? Is kind of my point. Like, I'm definitely of the opinion that if people get the job done and they attend meetings they're meant to attend, I don't care if they start at 8:30 or 9:30, right? As long as the work that we're expecting them to do gets done. But yeah, but if they need to be there because they're needed for things, then that's terrible. Yeah. The first 2 messages of the day are people saying they have a reason not to work today. Okay, that's a different thing, right? Yeah. Essa, what do you mean by fast endpoint? So we have a few options for getting started with an API these days, right? In .NET. So this is the more common quick way to get started with an application called minimal APIs. So this is your entry point into the application. You define the endpoint as this. This is very like Express.js, right? This is .NET Express.js, I think. this is great if you're just getting started with a project. Yep, no worries, Apex. If you're just getting started with the project, this is not a bad thing out of the box. But the problem is that what's happened is, because this is people's replacement for controllers in .NET, what has happened is people start putting structure around this, which kind of defeats the point in doing this, right? Because we have that, it's called controllers. So there's a few other libraries available now, fast endpoints being one of them. Fast endpoints basically is an opinionated structure on how to, so you define an endpoint, you put a method on it, and that's an entire class unto itself, with dependency injection, etc. And you kind of structure it slightly differently. I'm inclined to say we want the app to grow, so I don't really like the idea of minimal APIs. We've already identified that fast endpoints is pretty effective. So I think let's clean up this. I keep rolling my sleeves down because they get cold, and then I pull up my sleeves literally to do the work. Let's get rid of this stuff. We don't need this. There's some things I'm going to be missing here, so we'll figure that out in a second. We don't need that right this second. And let's add a new. Let's use fast endpoints. Let's see how it goes, and then we'll. Thanks for explaining. I've been out of the C# game for a while. I needed to make sure it wasn't a big technology. Yeah. So I was using originally a library from Ardalis called API endpoints, which because it fits with the way I think about how APIs work. Right? It's like a class that has an entry point and it does a thing. When you get controllers, you create dumping grounds. Because you tend to create a controller, like in this case it might be user controller, it might be log controller or whatever. So for all things logging, you start to put endpoints in there for those, and they become like, where does it really fit? Oh, I'll just stick it in that controller, and all the behavior gets stuck into there for your API. API endpoints or fast endpoints or whatever kind of gives you a better structure to work with. So what I'll do here is create a folder called endpoints, right? That's not required, but I kind of like the organization. And then I'll create another folder called, this one doesn't matter as much for fast endpoints because it doesn't structure that way. We'll call this register, just to put something in there. And again, the code is all to be determined, right? It is all open for discussion, open for debate. If you want to make a PR that changes something and we want to discuss it, make a PR, right? And this will be post, right? So I like this style. It's not required. Again, what this is I'm just being explicit about what HTTP method I'm going to use in here. So endpoints, register, post to register endpoint, right? Endpoint. I've got to remember this syntax now because fast endpoints is not something I've used a lot of. Endpoint, my request, my response. Okay. Register request. Yeah, we're not using that. That's actually that's an actual existing class. That's interesting. Okay, so here's a structural thing, a standard thing for discussion. My standard of putting the parameters, input and output parameters for a thing inside of this class to encapsulate it. Do you prefer more files? Do you prefer more folders? Do you prefer it all wrapped up in one area? Right. So my instinct here is I have a class called parameters, or well, more likely parameters, right? And it says public string name, public string email, public string password, public string confirm. Yeah, that'll do. And then we do post dot parameters there. That's our input, right? Our endpoint exists down here, and our response is right now I think a result, but response. Actually, we don't need. And then we public override action result handle. And that's what we do, right? We can do that. It doesn't like that. Yeah, this is where it gets confusing for fast endpoints. We don't want that. Is there a version of that is public override handle async? That one. Yeah, there we go. That's the one we want. So then we do our work in here, right? And then what you do in fast endpoints is you configure post. That's why. That's why I don't want to call that post. Ugh. It's a method on the thing, right? And then we do register. So that would be like API register. So that's the actual endpoint I'm going to go to. Right. For right now, because we're not doing anything else, then I think that's okay. Maybe the endpoint name could be register user, and model names can also be defined this way. What do we register? Maybe the endpoint name could be register user. So where did I have it? I've had a discussion around this sort of stuff before, right? Is there a case of registering anything but a user, right? We are registering for the application, right? You kind of asked it, right? What do we register, right? So we are registering to use the application. Is there any other form of registration? Not really. If we're talking about it, I'm registering for using the application, right? Does user have any bearing on that necessarily? I can't register a company. I can't register a. I don't register anything else. So if I'm just posting to the API/register and I require a name, an email, and a password and a confirm password, is that enough? Or do I have to specify user? What's the feeling? I forgot that it did this. Like this behavior is a challenge for this because I've called it post and it's everything's post. I think we should be able to understand what it is register when we first look at the project and file naming without looking at the code. Right? I don't disagree. I'm just asking, does that have a bear? Does the fact that it's a user have any bearing on the fact that it's registering, or is registering actually what we're looking for? Right. If I say, hey, can you go and look at the registration code? Are you going to specify, hey, do you mean registering a user? Is there a difference, right? Is registration, right? And you would, right? You'd see the register endpoint. Am I over engineering? Not necessarily. This is the minutia of software development, and you get into this discussion, and it does let you think about how you approach the challenge, right? Because you have a technical understanding of what it's doing, right? But your technical understanding and the actual external understanding are not necessarily aligned, right? It's the whole thing with the other thing. I don't with the agile platform, right? I'm still not sold on the register tenant, right? Tenant is a concept of database organization. I'm registering the organization still, so I'm still not sold on that pattern, right? I haven't really shared that, but that's my general dislike of that, right? What would a non-user registration example be? I don't think, right? So for right now, you register an account. That's it. There is only registering an account, and even account is superfluous. That's how we term it, but we're registering, right? When we register to use the application. These are words we put on as developers, right? An account, a user. These are things we kind of associate them with, but the act is what we're talking about, right? When I register for using the account, right, I need to provide a name, email, password, and confirm. So that's what I'm saying is like, if I ask you to look for the register code, the registration code, right, we could call this registration for sure. Is that more explicit? Right. So again, when you're looking at the code, and the point of the clean architecture stuff, right, is so that you can actually get to the use cases above the code first. But then it quickly becomes about the code structure once it gets past the use case. In all those examples, every single one, right, it starts at, hey, here's the use case. Oh, now here's the code. Here's commands. Here's queries. Here's specifications. Here's all these things. Here's all these technical implementations. So user is just an extra word. I've never coded identity. I'm not going to say we're going to go to massive depth of identity here. This is not going to be an advanced login system. If we want to switch it out to use Auth0 later, I don't want to start with Auth0. I think we just create a basic dumb username password thing, and we can obviously make that an add-on. Because what I want to do is I want to make sure that this project is not just my path through software development. It is one of what we're doing now, right? We're discussing it, we're debating it. I have strong opinions. Don't let me bully you. Right? I don't want to necessarily just take control of it, which it is instinctive to do. I understand that I'm going to make decisions to move on if I have to, but it is something we should definitely embrace this opportunity to discuss this thing. So, identity being one of those things, right? I know I would go to Auth0 and include all that, but that might be overkill at this point. Obviously, if I include Auth0, I then have an issue because then we've included things that are external to the application, which not everyone has access to go and register for Auth0 and sign up and do all that sort of stuff. So at least if we build our own system right now, we can talk about how do we plug in an identity provider later, right? Someone else can discuss that maybe. We can get someone in and say, hey, how do we properly externalize this? So we're not doing identity. We're going to do one-way encryption on, or simple encryption on the password, and then we're going to, yeah, that's my plan so far, so that there's something for someone to use. You don't need external stuff. But anyway, do we go API registration? Are we post to registration? Do we go register user? But is there anything else, like to Apex's point, right? Is there anything that isn't registering a user? I don't think there is. I'm slumping. So it might seem I'm going to fill in the gap here because I've got a feeling someone's typing something, but um, it might seem silly to be debating something so early on and something so simplistic as what do we call this thing, right? But I mean, if you've been a developer for more than 5 minutes, you've heard the phrase naming is hard, more than likely, right? Naming is really hard. And the problem is, as developers, we are naturally inclined to lean towards the technological side of things and start tagging things with their actual data, right? It's why I have an issue with controllers, right? Controllers, we tend to kind of categorize them by the entity that we're going to end up at, right? So if we have user, right, we're going to have a user controller. If we have account, we're going to have an account controller. And then what happens is you have to then figure out, okay, how does my new method, which is to calculate the number of accounts per user or whatever, fit in? Does it go into accounts or does it go into users, right? And you make a decision and you stick it in there, and then someone else comes along and is like, where's that method? Why did we put it under the widgets controller, right? Or the reporting controller, right? I call it code categories is hard. Not naming, so I name it differently. So it's not naming is hard, it's code categories is hard. Naming things is also hard, I guess. Like software development is not like I dislike when people say, yeah, development's really easy. Right. Writing an if statement, writing a while loop, writing general flow control code. Yes, agree. Anybody can pick that stuff up. Well, software development, engineering aspect of it, that is not easy, right? That takes a lot more care and attention, and naming can make the massive the biggest difference to how you work with your code. That's the whole concept behind clean code. That's the whole concept behind all these architectural patterns are aimed to make sure that software is written well. And if you start whacking technical terms on things, you're just going to follow that pattern, right? So I personally feel, and I'm open if you want to debate, if you want to. I mean, I don't want to get stuck on it, but in the same, it's this sort of stuff that matters, right? So I personally feel that there is no other form than registering a person, right? Let's not even call them a user right now. We're registering an account with our system, a person. We will have a user that can log into the system. They will have an account with us, and we are registering those details. So this is registration, right? So if our PM, right, comes along and says, hey, we need to change the registration, can you get there quickly, right? If it's under the user controller or it's under the reporting controller or whatever, probably not. But if you've got a folder structure that is consistent and well named, you can get there. And I'll get it wrong. I'll name things weird all the time. But again, as we go forward, that's the sort of thing you call out, right? You don't have to sit there and say, oh, look how badly he's naming that. I hate that. Right? You just say, hey, that's wrong. Okay. Let's start to put the pieces in, right? Let's start to make this work. We can come back on this. Nothing's set in stone. It's fine. Okay, so next question. Are we going to use mediator? Do we like that pattern? Is there any disagreement with that we should use that pattern? And notice the way I'm going here, by the way. I could start the data objects first. And I'm sure some people are thinking, why are you modeling the data? But I'm deliberately not doing that. If we're not going to use CQRS, there's no need for mediator. Are we not going to use CQRS? We want to dump everything in a service and have services. Just because we're not using the structure of clean architecture doesn't mean we're not using CQRS. We can still use CQRS using this method. Right? This is still open to us. Or at least the mediator pattern is still open to us. We still have that option. I think it is one of a clean design. And again, to Amal's question, right, about using Aspire and stuff, I think that if we just build this way, plugging in something like Aspire later on and deploying this to Aspire actually isn't that difficult. I think it is achievable. So things, we can make decisions now that we can undo, right? Nothing is hard to change. Oh no, I'm just looking at the time. So I wish. I wish. I mean, if you could just sort out my job for me, Deflux, I mean, I'd be happy to stream for 12 hours right now. Um, so for anyone new joining the stream, I see the viewership is decent today. If you're joining the stream and you are interested in what we're doing, if you have any questions, feel free to ask. This is a project that will be shared. I'll figure out some way of. I need a bot of some form in the stream to share links, etc. more routinely. Deflux, thank you for the sub. I appreciate that. Thank you, dude. You know, I still can't stream for 12 hours. Whoa. What are you? No. Deflux, dude. Man. Thank you. Chris Jones, Knickers, Lurks. Anwin got a sub. Was that nice? Nice. Appreciate that, Deflux. Really do. You're a man. Thank you. I'm all thrown off now. Tick Boom, thank you very much for the sub. Wow. Wow, thank you. Oh, that's just blown past any sub high I'd ever hit. Oh, thank you. Yeah, now I'm all thrown off. If you are in the stream and you have questions about what I'm doing, if you have questions about what we're doing now, right? This is a project to be shared. I will stream this for two days a week minimum, right? I still will focus on agile project management because it is something that I really do want to move forward. But I also understand the importance of sharing with the community, with others that are interested in this stuff, the ability to express your way of doing things, right? Which is why I'm taking my time with this, right? I'm not deliberately being slow. I'm not deliberately procrastinating over these pieces. These are pieces that matter when you're writing software with others, right? The naming can make the difference between productivity and failure, right? It can make rushing into the code does not help you, right? Setting down some patterns and practices to begin with, right? You know, CQRS. Do we want to use CQRS, or rather do we want to use Mediator at the very least? Whether we're using pure CQRS as it's prescribed is a different thing, right? We can look at that in a different way, but these are decisions that will help move the software forward, right? And as a team, which right now we are, if you want to contribute to this project, if you want to watch this project, if you want to have an opinion on this project, even if you're not adding code to this project, right? As a team, we discuss those things and we debate those things, right? Just because I've done this a lot, just because I've started file new project many times over the years does not mean that I know everything about what I'm doing, right? I've worked with developers that I've said, hey, what does that do? And they're like, I don't know, I just copy and paste it every time. Right? There's things that I do on a daily basis that I have to rely upon. Someone a lot smarter than me has figured out all the challenges and I know how that works, right? I'll give you an example. Async task. Do I understand that? I understand how to effectively use it. I understand once I start using this, it's really hard to get away from unless I break out using some bad pattern, right? I understand how to thread it. I understand certain things about it, but that's only through experience I've done that, right? Do I understand every underlying behavior? Do I understand every performance impact it has on my code? No, I don't, because I've never had to learn those things, right? Sometimes you have to learn through doing. So I want to share that, right? I want to share those experiences and make sure that we can build an application, right? So it's okay to challenge, hey, I don't think that should be named that way, right? I don't mind if we debate for 2 hours whether we want user to be in that registration, right? That is absolutely fine, as long as you're fine, right? Well, what? We continue with mediator, or we can be a service for now. A service can be written for each endpoint. Then the service methods can be separated with CQS mediator. It depends on your choice. Who've copy pasted? Yeah, I've worked with developers who've said, yeah, just copy and paste it every time, and they were similar time on job as me. Mr. Ranhorn, good morning. Hope you're well. So, you know, I think I will use mediator because it does feel natural. For me, if we don't have an opinion strongly either way, writing a survey. No. We're gonna do it the bad way. We're gonna do it in a way that allows us to reflect and go back on it. You're right, Essa. Right. I say the bad way. We're going to do it in a slightly less optimal way to start with, and we're going to then refactor that. I'll look at refactoring that. Okay, so I'm going to commit what we have, right? I would say at this point, please do not start making PRs. Do not start trying to put code in here. You're more than welcome to check out the projects and start tinkering, make sure you can build it, etc. But at this phase, if we start taking on PRs, it's going to get very confusing. We can discuss this stuff. Registration service can be written in the operations of post, get, delete. Yeah, we're going to do it that way. We're going to do it that way so that we can actually use it as an opportunity to refactor and share that experience as well. Yeah. Initial projects structure. And there's a reason I haven't started with the database, which I'll share shortly before we finish, right? Commit messages. I'm going to have to get better. Hold me accountable to make meaningful commit messages. If you feel that I'm writing garbage, just let me know, right? There's a lot in this piece, but initial projects for API application data, added fast endpoints, and stubbed out registration endpoint. Oh, no. Okay, so it looks like my time is up, whether I like it or not, because a certain puppy just got up and wants to take a walk by the looks of it. So, he's now telling me. Okay, sorry, looking have to deal with the old system pushing bad data into our new system, so it's turning into a fun Monday. Oh, joy, the worst kind of Monday. So, I'm going to raid out. I will be back tomorrow. We will do more of this tomorrow. I would say again, do not try and make PRs right this second. We will go through more stuff tomorrow. If you're watching on YouTube, please subscribe, like, comment if you like. You know, do all those fun things that you do on YouTube. It would be good to have feedback. It'd be good to understand if people are enjoying this content. If people think there's something we can do better, please feel free to provide any feedback you like. Deflux, thank you. I am overwhelmed with that support. I really do appreciate it. It's extremely amazing. What else was I going to say? Yeah, thank you, Thorolf. Thank you, Tick Tick Boom, for your subs. I really do appreciate the support. That's really thrown me for a loop today, I'm afraid. It is it is something that I do feel passionate about. I do want to keep doing this, and that does allow me to at least say to my wife, "Hey, you know that equipment I bought? Yeah, I do have an output for that, so it is worth it for me to support more of the stream." So, who should we raid out to? Deflux, you got anybody to go to? Apex has not started the stream yet, so Apex can't. But yeah, we'll be back tomorrow. We'll continue this project. We'll add in some services. I think that idea. Well, best of luck with the interview stuff. I hope that all goes well. You know, we'll add in some services. I think the point is that we'll do that so we can refactor it. We can reflect back on it, and we don't have to worry too much about the pieces, and we can show and share with others who maybe are working in that format, right? How do we change this up? How do we actually improve our software so it will work out well there? So Thornity is streaming, so we'll go over to Thornity. Thornity is doing game dev, but I found a lot of the Godot devs are doing some pretty cool stuff. And Thornity was working on a plugin the other day. I didn't get to spend all the time in it, but we were working on a plugin stuff, and yeah, it was a fun place to hang out. It looks like he's doing more of that. He's got a tooltip plugin for Godot that looks pretty cool. So yeah, thank you for joining me. I appreciate it. I will be back tomorrow. Feel free to join Discord. You know, all those videos go up on YouTube, and I did produce a short last week, so please check out the YouTube channel if you get the chance. So take care. Have a great one. Have a great rest of your day. Thank you. Bye.